I am back in the review business because I got something awesome to talk about. Let's go. I got invited to a small screening in my hometown of a local film, Southwestern Ontario made, and I figured as Southwestern Ontario's premier YouTube film critic, I mean, look at those 18 subscribers. Crushing it. The film in question, Here for Blood. This is the private event ticket. Shout out, Ben. Pretty cool little design. I dug it. So, I want to be honest. My expectations for this film were a little low. Not because of anybody involved, but we're talking independent horror, and I have seen a lot of it. This is a horror film, horror comedy, if you will. Essential plot is big old buff dude is asked by his girlfriend to fill in for babysitting duty because she needs to study for an exam. After a little bit of a pushback, a couple of funny lines, he goes, takes over the job for a few hours so she can get that extra study in before she'll come over and finish up the night. So he shows up at this house, take care of the little girl, and weirdos in masks show up and start messing with them. And Buff Daddy Mac, the babysitter, has to go and show him what's up and not to mess with him during his, what would you call it? Fill-in babysitted duties. That's your story. Now, there's a few other things in there. There's just some sprinkles of this and that. But that's your basic plot. I've been watching independent horror and horror for a long time. And the genre breeds so much fandom and passion for it that a lot of filmmakers will just throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks. And you can see these going through Prime, going through Netflix, any of your streaming services. Lord knows what you'll find on Tubi. There's tons of independent projects thrown out there. But a lot of times the quality is not great. And I'm going to go through each stage of this film, but I want to start off by saying this absolutely blew my expectations away. This is a very, very good and very, very enjoyable horror film. Something that I would easily put in my favorite modern independent horror films of the last few years at least. There's a few I might name during this that kind of reminded me of. I think it's right up there. Immediate comparison might be something like Dale and Tucker versus Evil as far as tone and kind of walking that line between some genuine character building with some real funny moments and some extreme violence. So let's start off with the actors involved in this project. Your main character, Tom O'Bannon, is played by Sean Roberts. This is a prime example of just the right actor for the right role. He gets what he's doing, and the way some of his line deliveries, how straight he plays this is essential to the film. I mean, you just really grow to like the guy. You can't always explain why that happens. Sometimes it could be the writing, the acting, how we shoot scenes, all that combined, but you do. There's a point in the movie where you're genuinely rooting for this guy. He comes across as a real dude. The acting across the board, though, in this film is really, really good. The child actress in this that plays the young girl he's babysitting, I'm going to try to get this name right. Maya Misalevich, I believe, is how you do it. She is great. This is I don't want to say rare, but it's definitely something you don't come across often in horror films or independent horror films in general that involve children. I'm looking at you, Babadook. There are some really, really bad child performances and kid actors in this space. This girl knocks the character out of the park. She plays Grace, and she's just a normal kid. You know when you watch a movie and kids do stuff in the film that you're like, kids wouldn't do that. Or they make kids overtly dumb, like any child under 13 doesn't understand how the simplest mechanics work or how to listen to a simple direction from an adult in a terrifying situation. There's none of that here. There's some genuine, awesome, real kid feels. And I think that's important to a film that is going to go so outside the box with the presentation of the practical effects and some of the story elements that your main characters feel real. And they do here. She is great. And, looking at her IMDb, there's more projects from her in the future. I think you're probably going to see somebody that becomes quite developed and well-known actress. But all the actors, top to bottom, there's parents in here, the girlfriend's friends, the villains. there's no dialed in performances, which leads me to the second part of this review. I want to talk about the director, Daniel Torres, first time director, I believe. And let me tell you, this is a well shot film. Lighting, characters, capturing the gore, which is so important to a film like this. He clearly sets up and delivers the scenes, the gags, the serious moments. It's all very well done. Kudos to him. The whole crew involved here for an independent horror film. One of my real pet peeves is, I could just probably throw out an imaginary title like Slumber Horrority Campsite Massacre 2, and it probably exists somewhere, and you'll watch it, and because they have real issues with lighting and sound recording, you end up with scenes where like they have to put the camera right here when they talk because they can't put a camera over here and sound capture properly for that scene. So the only way you can do it is with a close-up mic, putting the camera right here. So you'll notice there'll be like a stalking scene in the film, knives, maybe some music, and then they go to a talking scene and the actors are right up next to the camera. There's none of that here. Shout out to sound. I gotta say it. The film sounds really good. I kind of had my eyes because my eyes here. Something I look for in independent horror films because there's been so many times where I'm like, there was something here, but just the ability of the filmmakers to capture it or whatever they were able to do with the funds they raised, it just didn't happen. This film deserves recognition. There's so much to love here. Genuine laughs. I saw this with one very big horror fan, and I saw it with a non-horror fan. And when we walked out, the first thing we were talking about was, holy crap, that was a fun movie. And that is what horror is supposed to do. People are like, is it scary? Shut up! Horror is about fun, whether it's tossing your popcorn in the theater, whether it's like looking at your friend with your jaw open because of some insane gore effect. The Butcher Shop, the makeup team that put this together, what they did with a very small budget here, and I'm sure a very tight timeline, is unbelievable. And some of the gags, the practical gags, they do get pushed just to get that extra laugh because of how violent they are. But it fits the tone of the film. It was absolute fun. Some of the practical stuff on display here, if you're a diehard, that guy that's got all the classics on the shelf and you just throw back to, I wish they didn't use so much CGI, kind of that same tone when you yell at the kids to get off your front lawn. You do it. And if you haven't, you're going to. That's the same feel you're going to have here. You're just going to be like, this is my jam. Something I want to touch on is the mistake of film critics over the years to fall into a specific way of categorizing horror in comparison to other films or past generations. Like during the 90s, do you remember like every late 90s, early 2000 horror movie slasher like Scream, I Know What You Did Last Summer, they all had like a tagline that was something like smart, sexy, scary, hip, fresh, scary, so smart, sexy, scary. It was like on every poster. Critics get stuck into a way of talking about horror movies. Like, it will blow you away. You've never seen anything like this. Other genres as well. It's like rails that once it comes up and once you see a response to it that connects to the audience, you just keep throwing them out there. And I think it really does hurt some of these films that, deserved a better way of explaining what they are. And there's some great late 90s, early 2000s slashers that got lost in that hip, sexy, scary. For instance, now when you see a film come out like this that is slasher-centric, tons of gore, they'll say, throwback to the glory days of the slasher, an homage to 80s films. And I think that's a little bit disingenuous because this is not that. This is a modern horror film that clearly respects its history. And there's a couple of subtle nods in there that are pretty cool. This is not a film trying to be an 80s slasher, which a lot of current films, oh man, trying and failing. Critics, stop labeling these things as throwbacks to the past, the golden era. We are on the precipice of a new age of horror. It's easy to say it's not a perfect film. Oh, there's this, there's that. Of course, I'm a horror fan. I'm a film fan. Lord knows how many I have watched. There's always going to be things that I can look at or nitpick. I don't think that's important here. I think that there are times when you, as a horror fan, maybe as a film fan, but definitely as a horror fan, when you stumble across something that is not known, not yet have a wide release, is done lovingly by a very small group of passionate people, you just have to appreciate what they delivered here. They mentioned at the end during the Q&A that they were going to be doing some traveling, showing this film at other festivals. I cannot imagine this film does not get picked up. I would love to see it in a theatrical run, even limited, But if that isn't a possibility, I really hope that some of these smaller distributors pick up like an Arrow, like a Vinegar Syndrome, who I don't know if Vinegar Syndrome will, I guess, because they have a tendency to stick to only tape. But some of these other distributors out there, like Arrow, like Synapse, who deliver some modern films, Shout Factory. I think this is absolutely a one you can throw in a great package and let a whole generation of horror fans discover. And this is the type of film that is strong enough as a debut that the horror fans will then follow this team or this director to their next project. Gore, 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 gore. It's a hard R. I'm sure if it does make a theatrical run, there'll probably be a few cuts to get that solid R rating. But hey, no worries. You'll get that extended director's cut on the disc. As far as a film goes, I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. On the horror independent scale, look, this is a solid 8, maybe an 8.5. We'll see what I throw down on the bottom. It is a true find and something that I was still talking about with my friends a week later. I let this simmer for a week. I wanted to make sure this review got the time and the effort that it deserved to stay on point, which probably means this review is slightly less entertaining. For Blood, get out, see it, and have a great time with it. Enjoy the blood-soaked cinema out there, videophiles, and I will chat with you soon. Here for Blood!